Good afternoon. Today is September 2nd, 2015. My name is Edna Sussman. I'm a reference librarian at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library. We are interviewing Joseph Abbondondelo, a World War II Army Air Force veteran, as part of our Veterans Testimonial Project and in collaboration with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Thank you so much, Joe, for being here today and participating in our project. Joe, where and when were you born?
I was born in Roslyn out here in Long Island on January 23rd, 1924.
And who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad was in the building construction line.
What was his name?
And Nicholas was his first name. My mother, Carmela Abbondondelo, she was mostly home.
Okay. And did you have any siblings? Brothers and sisters?
I had an older sister. She's still alive. Mm-hmm. And both of my younger brothers passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. And what was her name?
That was Anne.
Anne.
A-N-N-E.
Did any of them serve in the military also?
Yes. My one young brother, he was also the Second World War in the military, I should say the medical corps. Mm-hmm. And my youngest brother, that would have been Carmen, he was drafted during the Korean War.
So we're both in the Army?
They were both in the Army.
Uh-huh. Now, what were you doing before you entered the service?
I had just gotten out of high school.
Oh.
I was just out of high school a short while.
Were you working at all?
For a while, yes.
What did you
For
do?
a few, mostly odd jobs, working at the golf courses, caddying, things like that.
In New York?
And then I went in. I was in this area.
Oh.
And then I went into the Air Force.
Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
Well, I enlisted. I just beat the draft.
Oh, you wanted to enlist. You wanted to enlist.
I wanted to get into the Air Force anyway.
Now, why did you pick the Air Force?
Oh, I don't know. I had a pretty much of an interest in flying.
Oh.
More or less. And
So, when you departed for training camp, had you flown a plane before?
Before that, no.
No. What happened when you departed for training camp and during early days of training?
How do you mean?
Well, what did you learn, and what did they train you to do?
Oh, well, I trained to be a flight engineer, actually, so I went to the school to learn aircraft mechanics.
Is that for
to know the systems of the aircraft.
Uh-huh.
Then from there I went to a gunnery school.
Oh.
And then after that, that was down in Florida, a gunnery school. Mm-hmm. And then from there I went to Langley Field, Virginia for overseas training.
Okay. So did you also learn how to fly the planes? Or
No, I was a gunner.
Gunner, which means what? What's that?
Well, we had to man the guns. We had to learn how to shoot the guns.
From the plane?
From the plane, oh yes.
Oh. Do you recall your instructors?
What?
Do you recall your instructors for basic training? The teachers. What were they like?
Well, military, really.
Strict?
Strict, pretty strict, yes. Yeah.
Nice?
You had to be.
Yeah. Do you remember them at all?
Vaguely.
Now, tell me a little about your specialized training for the aircraft and the gunnery and all that. How did they train you?
Well, we had to know this. In my case, we had to know the systems of the planes, mechanically, especially.
What kind of planes?
Oh, well, that was a B-24 Liberator.
Okay. And what was its task? That was like a bombing plane?
There was a heavy bomber. It was the largest bomber at that time.
Wow. How many military people were on the plane?
It was a crew of 10.
10. Now, you didn't sleep on the plane.
No.
Now, how did you adapt to military life? The physical regimen, the food, the barracks, where were, and social life. Where were you stationed, first of all? First.
Well, as for training as the aircraft mechanic, that was over in North Carolina, place called Seymour Johnson Air Base.
Okay, and how long were you there?
And I was there about 4 months.
For the training.
Yeah, then I went down for about 2 months to train to fire the guns. That was down in Fort Myers, Florida.
Uh-huh. And then?
And then overseas training we took in Langley Field, Virginia, for 2 months before we went overseas.
And how did you get overseas?
We flew our own bomber over.
You did?
Yeah.
Where did it, was it stationed in one particular place usually?
Yeah, yes. We were basically, I was with the 15th Air Force, and that was in southern Italy.
Mm-hmm. Southern Italy.
That's it.
And when you weren't flying in the plane, where were the barracks?
We slept in tents. That was in the area.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tents.
Oh, yes.
How many people to a tent?
We had about maybe 6 people altogether, yeah.
And how many people were on the whole base, usually?
For the whole base? Oh, well, on the average, normally we had about 4 squadrons. Usually it was about seven bombers to a squadron. So that made up close to around, give or take, 30 bombers to a squadron.
Wow. And they all lived on that one base?
Oh. Yeah. And then we were all in the same area. Then there were other squadrons in that area that flew. Oh. So we had 4 different squadrons. So when you figure, well, with 10 with 10 people to a crew and all that. I'm sorry, I have to figure that out.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so it's a lot of people.
Yes, oh yes.
Wow. How was the food?
Well, under the conditions, well as could be expected.
Mm-hmm. Did you have time for social activities?
Well, sometimes we went on leave. We could go into some of the local villages.
Do you remember the town you were near when you were?
It was a small town called Cerignola in Italy. Mm-hmm. Originally, where our base was, there was a huge cellar. Evidently, it was a wine cellar.
Oh.
So evidently, they must have made wine in that area.
I see. Is your family originally from Italy?
Yes.
Oh, had you ever been over before?
No.
Were your parents born there?
My parents were born there, yeah.
In what, do you know what town?
Well, my father was born in a town called Abbondondelo, which is not too far from Rome. Mm-hmm. My mother was born near a town called Naples.
Naples, sure.
Which was a little further south.
Yep. Now, when you were there, stationed there, did you still have relatives there?
No.
No.
I didn't get to see them.
No. But there were some that lived.
They were still in the area, but
you didn't see them.
Well, where our base was, we were on the other side of this, on the other side of the country.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was sort of out of the way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, what are some memories of your experience abroad there, of serving?
Well, flying the missions was pretty difficult fighting the Germans, I have to say.
Did you go up every day?
And you didn't go up every day, but I flew some 40 missions against them. And I must say, and to this day, Germany put up a good fight. They were well trained.
Really?
Yes, and well equipped.
Huh.
Well, I do say so.
Now, so you were pretty much near the front lines.
Oh yeah, well over. We had to go well into enemy territory.
Wow.
And with our bombers, we'd be in the air for 8 hours at a time. 4 hours to get to the target, and then 4 hours coming back.
Wow.
So.
Was it pretty much, so you were stationed in Italy, but you pretty much flew to Germany?
Oh yeah, bombed Germany, Austria, the Balkan country, Romania, all the oil refineries in Romania, and some of the other Balkan countries. Italy, we were still fighting the Germans in Italy.
Right.
So we were bombing targets in that area also.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you remember seeing when you could you see the land when you were?
No, we were usually some 5 miles in the air.
So you couldn't
5 miles
see.
up. Everything was very small. Everything's whatever you saw on the ground was very small. You couldn't really make out anything.
So how did you know where to aim the guns?
The guns. Well, when the fighters were coming after us, they were shooting at us. We had to shoot back.
The planes.
The fighter planes would, yes, they would be making passes at us. They would be attacking us, and then we had to shoot back to try to keep them away or get them out of, you know.
Were you in control of any of the bombs that were being dropped?
No, that was a bombardier's job.
Oh, he was on your plane, though.
And we were on the same plane, yes.
Same plane.
Yeah, you had the bombardiers, you had the pilot, co-pilot, navigator, gunners, and
Was your plane ever hit?
yes.
What happened?
What happened? It was on fire. We had a parachute.
Where did you parachute into?
Oh, we were bombing an oil refinery near Vienna, Austria, and I was wounded in my left arm, and I took shrapnel in my head.
Wow.
By the time I got back, they did hospitalize me for a while, and then from there I went to a prisoner of war camp.
Prison war camp?
Oh, I was in yes.
You were a POW?
I was captured right after D-Day. We were bombing that oil refinery right after D-Day.
You were captured?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes.
What country were you in then?
That was in Austria, not far from Vienna. That was an oil refinery we were bombing.
So then the camp...
And they shot me with some 28 planes we went off with that morning. Germans shot down 12 of us.
Wow.
12 bombers they shot down.
Did everybody make it out?
No. No, some were killed. I mean, you know, some were wounded, killed, or whatever. Then some survived, spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp.
How long were you in the prison war camp?
I was 9 months myself.
Wow. Now, how did you get out?
They sent us to a camp called Stalag 4. That was in northern Poland, just not far out of Germany, up by the Baltic Sea. This was during the winter, and we had to deal with the snow and the cold, the very poor diet. I mean, they didn't feed us that well. And we had left during the Russian offensive. The Russians liberated our camp, actually, but the Germans got us out of there. They took us out of there and took us to the west to get to the Americans and British instead of waiting for the Russians to come in.
Oh.
And the war was nearing the end anyway.
Oh.
So that's when they let us go.
So some of your comrades from the plane were with you. How many were with you in this camp?
There was none of them. They were in the same camp, but they had us in different compounds. They kept us separate.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Do you know?
I have no idea. I really don't.
So it was the Austrians it was their camp?
Well, in Austria, that was the target we were bombed.
Yes.
Now the prison camp was up in northern Poland.
Oh, I see.
By the Baltic Sea.
Right. Okay.
And
how did you sleep?
Huh?
They had barracks?
No blankets on the floor.
But it was cold.
It was, you're telling me it was cold.
Wow.
Snow and cold.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know how big a camp was that?
I would say there was about 10,000 prisoners altogether between Americans and British.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there was
to this day, I don't know how we survived that.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Wow.
We somehow or another, I don't know. Maybe we were being younger, or who knows.
So you were about 18, 19 years old when that happened?
I just turned 20. I just went on. 20. I just made 20.
Were they able to? Did you heal in the camp your wounds from your shrapnel and the?
Well, no, not really. I mean, when I was being shot down near Vienna, they did take us to a hospital there.
Oh.
Medically, the nurses and doctors were okay, but once you got in the prison camp, condition got very bad.
Wow.
And once you got in prison camp, it just.
Did you get sick at all? You got sick or more injuries?
No, sometimes if you did, you just had to deal with it. You never know. I mean, you just hope. No. And then you had to worry about, even when my arm, I had to worry about infection.
Sure.
Between gangrene, because they couldn't treat you. They had nothing to treat you with.
Wow.
Why would they anyway?
Right.
You're on the other side. They have their own people to worry about.
Wow.
You have to understand, we we bombed the Americans. We were bombing them during the day, and the British were bombing them at night. We didn't let those people sleep. I mean, it was war.
Yeah. So they didn't have to be nice to you.
No, they didn't. But a lot of times they left you alone. Didn't, as long as you say.
But you did it.
Didn't do anything foolish. But
what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving? Did you form any close friendships or with the Americans?
with some of the other prisoners.
Or other soldiers in your unit, or?
Well, yes, those of us, because we were all crammed into one area there, and
so you became
you had
friends.
to, oh yes,
Had to get along.
Well, we had to get along with our own, which was a good thing.
Were you able to stay in touch with family and friends when you were?
Some of them I did after we got back to the country, but most of them are gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's none left. There's really hardly anybody left. Out of my crew, I'm the only one left out of my crew. They're all passed on. I was young. I wasn't young enough, so.
Yeah.
What was the others? The others that survived eventually.
So once you entered the European, when your plane arrived in Europe, from the time you got there until you were shot down or parachuted out, how long was that? Until you became a POW?
I would say I was there about a little over a week. I was in a local hospital, a little over a week.
But how long were you there?
As soon as I was able to get up and around and walk around, they took me out of there.
Right, but no, I mean, when you first arrived in Europe with your plane and your comrades,
yeah.
How long until you had to parachute out?
Oh, well, you arrived, we were flying our first mission, as ironically, just during the Anzio invasion of Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, we did some bombing there at the time, at the day the invasion took place.
Do you remember what
that
year
that? January. That was January 1944, and I was shot down in June 26, 1944. So we had about 5 months, I guess.
5 months.
Yeah.
And then you said you were 9 months in the camp.
9 months altogether as a prisoner, all 9 months.
And then the war was kind of winding down after that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. By spring of 1945 it was practically over.
How did you keep in touch? Were you able to keep in touch with family and friends from home while you were?
I tried to, but I never heard from them all the time I was there. And they did let us send some letters out, to them, but I never heard from them.
Maybe they didn't.
I don't know.
They weren't deliverable because
They
you were an
probably
enemy
wouldn't have
land.
been. Yeah.
I mean, what was your day like in the camp? What did you do all the
Nothing.
time?
Just stayed put. There was no place to go, even if you did escape. I mean, it was cold. The Baltic Sea, the only place you could have gone into was Sweden. Sweden was a neutral country then, but you had to get across the Baltic Sea.
Oh, I see.
There was really no way out.
No way out.
That's why when they located those camps,
I see. Wow.
It wasn't a good idea to attempt it.
Yeah. So, I mean, other soldiers weren't POWs, so they had time for recreation and off-duty time. You didn't really have that.
No.
Now, you were in the camp and then you said they kind of let you out, but then the war wasn't completely over.
No.
So where did you go?
The Russians, in February 45, the Russians liberated our camp. Well, we weren't there. By then, we were out of there.
Where were you?
The Germans took us out of there. We were on our way heading west towards where the Americans and British were. But in my case, I went out with the wounded. And eventually we got us on a train, and when we got to Switzerland, they let us go. Switzerland was a neutral country.
Right. Now,
So
why
I got out. In other words, I got out of there and on my way home before the war ended, a few months.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Now, why were you with the wounded? You were still wounded?
My arm, between my arm, my head, and all that. And when I was here, I didn't get out of the military right away. I got back in February, and I was in the hospital till December 45. Between the surgery, yeah. Then they send you out when you had an operation. They send you home for a 30-day leave, and then you came back, and then you had to wait to get surgery again. Yeah. Then they had casualties coming in from Pacific, so the doctors and nurses had their hands full.
Where did you first arrive when they sent you home to the States?
I got back to a hospital in near Staten Island, a Halloran Hospital it was. From there I went home. I was home for a 30-day leave, and then I had to go back to the hospital in Valley Forge General Hospital in near Philadelphia.
For how long was that? More surgery?
I was there for about 3-4 months, and then I went to England General Hospital in Atlantic City, and I was there till I was discharged.
When was that?
Well, I went there in like May or June, I forget now. It was May or June in 1945, and I stayed in Atlantic City from then till December 45. Wow. When I got out.
You must have had pretty serious injuries.
Well, it took a while of healing up. But then, when you had surgery done then, actually, today, they've come so far. But what they did is the incision, by the time you healed up and all, they wouldn't think of doing anything else for a while. So usually they send you home on leave for a month.
And let it heal and then do the next thing.
Oh, yeah.
I see. Wow. Were you in pain when you were it must have been pretty painful.
Oh, yeah. It was.
When you were first injured.
Oh, yeah, especially.
Wow. Now, when you returned home, how were you received by family and friends? They knew you were coming?
Well, I guess some of them did. Some of them might have known. It's hard to say. I think my family probably kept in touch with some of the neighbors and relatives, because we had a lot of relatives right in the area where I was living.
You weren't married when you left?
No.
No. And how was it? You were in the hospital in medical care for quite a few months, and now.
Out here, back home. Once we got back home, we got treated. We got first rate.
First rate. So, how did you re-enlist, or were given the chance to re-enlist?
No, you were considered inactive status. They put you on, and they just kept you in the hospital until they did whatever they had to do for you.
And when you left,
you were well enough to be discharged.
Okay.
Once they did whatever they had to do, and your conditions, your conditions had to prove that you were discharged.
Discharged from the service?
From the oh yes.
Oh.
Yeah, they would have let you go then.
So you didn't want to re-up?
Oh no.
No. You were there 2.5 years, or in the service?
Over 3.
Over 3.
Yeah, over 3.
How was it to readjust to civilian life?
Oh, yeah, that was that. It had its problems.
How so?
It was different. Everything was so different then, and even after the war ended, you have just to give you an idea. You take the automobile factories in Detroit. They were making bomber parts. They had to reconvert. They had to convert back to making cars, and everything changed. I mean, the country was actually involved in the war. Everybody was involved with it, whether you were here or not. There was rationing. What's going on?
Really?
And here the way it was. You worked in defense. You worked for government or republic or in that line of work. There was no civilian way of life here hardly.
Were your parents able to work during this?
Oh yes.
time?
My parents. I was living in Roslyn at the time, in which they worked. They worked for Sperry gyroscope people, making automatic pilots, things like that over there.
And your siblings too were in school or working while you were overseas and when you came back?
Well, they were still in school. Both of my brothers, my sister had gone to work. My father had worked for Sperry's. But both of my younger brothers, they were still in school.
Still in school. So what else was troublesome to readjust to civilian life? Did you get
well, I don't know.
Did you get a job right away?
I didn't go to work right away.
What did you do?
Eventually, and then finally, my father went to work for the Levitt, started with the mass producing the homes out here. If you remember at that time, especially in 1947, if you know anything about that time, it's there was a big demand for homes at that time. People bought houses without even knowing where it was going to be. They just went to the Levitt office and bought the house right then and there, and they were glad, which they were happy to get. So we started working there. My father was doing work for him there.
And you too?
And I used to go out there, but I didn't work like the others. I wasn't ready.
Okay. So what? How long did you? When you finished?
I did that. Then I took a job. I did then 19. Then I took a job with the bank after that.
Oh.
So I worked with the bank.
Near home?
So yeah, I was near home. I worked with the banks on the island.
And what did you do?
I've had teller. I worked 20 years as a teller. Did some of the work in the office. Went through mergers, which those were big changes. Anytime you went through the mergers, and I retired from back in New York.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow. You remember when was that?
Oh, I retired quite a while ago. That was back in 1940. When I retired, 1940, 1980, 1988, something like that. Yeah. Because it was a few years after my wife died. Yeah, that's around.
Okay. And you have children on the island? Family?
Oh.
You have family here on the island still?
Oh, yeah.
Now, have you remained in contact with or reunited with any fellow veterans?
Not anymore. I don't.
No, but when you first came back...
When I first came back, I was in touch.
Yeah.
I kept in touch with those that I served with,
You did.
that was in the group, those that survived,
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Oh, yeah. I still am a member of DAV,
Nice.
the American Legion, the American Ex-Prisoners of War.
Wow.
I'm still a member there.
Nice.
What's left of us,
Yes, yes. And you got a Purple Heart.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah.
Now, what have you done since retirement? Since separating from the military, you worked in the bank.
Not much.
And you had a family.
Try to keep active in different ways.
Yeah. Now you had You have a family. What? You have children?
Oh yeah, both of my sons. So we were close by. So I kept in touch with them.
Nice.
I used to see them often enough.
And you have grandchildren?
No.
No. Okay. Now, how do you think your wartime experience affected your life?
Well, it's in a lot of ways it's not the best memory in the world actually.
Really?
I mean,
hard.
you still have you still remember some of the days in which you had to go through at that time.
Like what?
And going through the living conditions, the war itself, and the living conditions, the way things were over there.
Were you afraid? Were you afraid?
I don't know. I think you're all afraid. Combat is.
Yeah, terrible.
It's. I mean, it's you're doing the shooting, but then you're being shot at at the same. So actually, yeah, it's I'm getting away from it.
It's hard. What do you think are some life lessons that you learned from the military?
Well, you'd like to see more of the country, a little bit more peace, with the rest of the world. But
okay, and what about your feelings about war and the military in general? How do you think your service impacted your feelings about war and the military?
Well, the only thing I can say is at that time we had no choice. The Germans had to be stops, especially when you had the likes of Hitler, and then the Japanese, they had to also be stopped because we would if they had won the war, I wouldn't want to think what life would be like in this country.
Really?
If they had won.
Huh.
No.
Is there anything you did that you regretted?
Oh, I don't know. No. I mean, not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, as far as regrets, I wouldn't say.
Now, what message would you like to leave for future generations who might hear this interview?
Well, well, I hope we can stay at peace, and this younger generation doesn't forget what we did.
No,
what
that's
part
why
we played in.
No, that's why we want to
And,
do this.
That and then that we can have we can have a decent future for
Right.
them and theirs, and
Yeah.
basically.
Is there anything you feel you'd like to add that we haven't discussed?
I can't think of anything right offhand.
When you were
I think
over in Europe, anything come to mind that stood out other than you had a lot of experiences at the
Yeah.
camp?
Well, a lot of that is past memories.
Yeah. Is it hard to drum them up? Hard to think of them?
Yeah,
or-
no, in a way.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. So you lost some friends over there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't get away from when you're in an area like that especially during wars. You have to. There's no getting away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took its toll.
Sure. Sure. And when you came back, then when did you get married? You were working at the bank?
Yeah, I got married maybe about 3 years after I was discharged.
In your
3 years after.
20s? You were in their 20s?
I was about 25.
Uh-huh.
And I got married in 1949.
Did you ever go after the war, or long after, did you ever go back to Europe?
Yeah, I made 2 trips back to Germany.
Did you?
Austria, well, not Austria, I should say Belgium, Holland, and Germany.
Okay.
France too.
With your family or your wife? Or who did you go with?
My son.
Oh, nice. Nice.
My son and my daughter-in-law, yeah.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Different.
Yeah.
It's hard to. They really amaze me how I have to give them credit. They did quite a job rebuilding. that
Rebuilding
country.
it, really?
Yeah.
Did you recognize anything?
No.
Really?
Not really. Everything was just completely rebuilt.
When you left, was it pretty much a lot of demolition? It was a lot of rubble and...
Oh yes, mostly rubble.
Really?
From the bombings. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anything else you'd like to share or remember, Joe?
Well, right offhand, I think you've done a pretty good job of it so far.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your time and for your service above all. We really, really appreciate it,
Alrighty.
and sharing all your memories with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.